editors are not the people down on the ground who like the books. They're the acquirers and the business people. Any editor who takes the time to actually read the manuscript that comes in, instead of giving it to his assistant, that is an editor who gets fired. That's the way it works. Sorry, you've got to acquire more books in less time. That's the object. And I know my last several books, I could tell, I could see the handwriting of the notes, of all 3 notes. And it was the assistant, right? Not that the assistant wouldn't write good notes, but what about the editor? So what happens? What happens? Well, what I chose to do was do a book in a completely independent fashion, right? With Or Books. And my friend, he's probably here, my college friend, right? A college friend who's a dropout of the traditional corporate publishing industry because he actually edits books, and there's no time and place for that. And we said, okay, so what's Or Books' model? The crazy thing is, rather than giving an advance or a big advance, a traditional advance, you get a small one. Let's just put the book out, give the author a much bigger piece of the back end, and direct sell the thing. All right, so the one big issue is to buy this book, you've got to go to one site and direct buy it. You've got to go to orbooks.com instead of to Amazon or B&N and all that. As a result, though, I can offer a book to my readers for half the price, on which I make more money. And I get to come out a month after I write it rather than 2 years. Why does it take the traditional publishing industry 2 years to release a book like this? Because they need to justify all of the people and intermediaries. You have to get on this list and prepare for that sub-buyer and this distribution network to get on the shelves to do the thing, to do the blah. Right? Stuff that actually, I understand when you want to ship real books into stores and the store has to figure out who to buy it from. They can't talk to every publisher, so they need this intermediary and that one and all. But then when you've got a guy like me, I'm not an O'Reilly writer, but basically writing about technology, that no longer works. So where does that leave us? In a good place in the long run. Right? I think, it sounds sad to say it like this, but I think what we are contending with is the fact that not as many of us are needed as there used to be, right? Publishing can probably get on fine and actually better if it only needed to support about 40% of the people who are actually involved in publishing. Right? So I would argue if you really want to be involved in publishing, then you should really love books. Right? You should love books enough to want to get way down into the value creation part of book publishing. Right? Which is, do you like authors or do you like text and fonts? Right? Do you like books? Do you like writing and all that, right? This is not a growth industry. Not a growth industry in the way that your holding companies would require, right? The book business can never grow at the rate that the debt structure of a major media conglomerate would require. They're incompatible. The book industry is incompatible with major media conglomerate debt structure. It just is. So there's 2 choices. Either you be some kind of what we would call an independent giant corporation that makes books, that understands it's going to have a different growth rate, so you'd probably not want to be a publicly held company, but be a privately owned company of long-term investors, or be the, not money-losing, but be the sustainable pride partner of a major media conglomerate. The same way that major motion picture companies put out Woody Allen movies, even though they know they broke even through the 70s and 80s, because it just upped the status of the entire entity. Sometimes a major media conglomerate can hold something for status like that, or to increase the value of their overall brand. But then that's what you're delivering. That's the value, right? But I would argue the joy here is that the only people who have to do books anymore are the people who really like books. Right? And that's going to be great. And if you're just into distribution or something else, and and electronic distribution, whatever it is, go into video games, go into movies, go into some other fun, great field and make a ton of money. And that's beautiful. Those of us in books, yeah, we want to make a living, but that's really all we want to do, right? We just want to get to stay alive to the end, being involved with books, right? And that for me is as good a life as anyone should be prepared to ask for. Okay, thanks a lot.